Just imagine, 800 years BC, scientists were faced with a task that even today sounds very complex and difficult to implement. They needed to preserve and pass on to other generations sacred hymns, thousands of poems, mathematical schemes, and philosophical texts of such depth that people still argue about them today. At that time, there was no paper, no recording devices, and no room for error. And somehow, they managed it. Not a year, not 10 years, but 3,000 years straight, they passed on the knowledge word for word, as if the human brain were a living computer with an entire database that survives to this day. In fact, they even succeeded in this area, but here's what's most frightening. Their memory became simply superb, as they were able to memorize tons of material. Their main tool was not a machine, not technology, and not a secret school of memory. It was a small marsh plant that today can be grown in a glass of water on a windowsill. A plant whose name most people have never heard of. And if ancient India really did build a civilization of memory on it, then an awkward question arises. Why, in today's world obsessed with brain pills, does almost no one tell you about it? Could it be that their only secret was a small marsh plant with fleshy leaves, which in ancient texts was called a herb that helps one remember the Creator himself? The thing is, the pharmaceutical industry spent millions of dollars to make sure you never knew its name. By subscribing to our channel, you'll be able to learn even more useful and lost information, so be sure to watch the video to the end to avoid missing anything. Today, we open a case about a plant that ancient India used to build a memory civilization. Modern science is finally admitting that it works as well as their best drugs. It's worth understanding that in a culture where a mistake could mean the loss of entire layers of wisdom, such recommendations were not made at random, and there was no room for error. We are talking about Bacopa monnieri, a small creeping plant with white flowers that in ancient traditions was associated with intelligence, learning, and clarity of thought. In ancient treatises, Bacopa was considered a top-tier remedy for the mind and memory. And it wasn't just another plant or a household herb for all occasions. It was singled out as a tool for those who wanted not only to be healthy, but to remember, understand, and retain the most complex volumes of knowledge in their heads. The texts describe how this plant was given to students before training, to monks during periods of deep meditation, and to those whose lives depended on the accuracy of their memory. Now here are the real facts and literature that will be just right for understanding and comparison. The Karaka Samhita, written in the 6th century CE, classifies herbs according to their effects on the human body. It assigns its highest category to only one. Media Rasayana is a rejuvenating remedy for intellect and memory. It describes a small creeping plant with white flowers that scientists used before memorizing entire libraries. The Ayurveda Samhita of 800 BCE documents how practitioners gave this plant specifically to students preparing for exams and monks engaged in deep meditation. These were not random recommendations, for in a culture where memory determined whether wisdom would survive, a mistake in this meant the loss of centuries of knowledge. And they all leaned toward just one plant. And the only one they leaned toward was Bacopa monnieri. 3,000 years of documented use suggests they made the right choice. And that's what makes ancient Ayurvedic medicine remarkable. They didn't just use plants. They documented the precise mechanisms. Vedic texts described Bacopa as acting through the subtle channels of the Brahmi, which govern cognitive function. In 2008, researchers from Thailand's Konkan University discovered what these ancient scholars somehow knew. Bacopa modulates acetylcholinesterase activity in the cerebral cortex, selectively affecting the hippocampus. It is worth understanding that this is precisely the mechanism that modern pharmaceutical companies present as their breakthrough invention. Ancient practitioners understood that Bacopa increases the availability of acetylcholine in areas of the brain responsible for memory formation. They used it to achieve what modern neuroscience considers almost impossible: memorizing texts over 100,000 words, word for word. But will it stand up to modern scrutiny? In 2008, a team from the National College of Natural Medicine in Portland conducted a study that pharmaceutical companies hoped would fail. They recruited 54 participants aged 65 and older and administered a simple test. Half received 300 milligrams of Bacopa extract daily. The other half received a placebo. Bacopa was given every day. And surprisingly, the results, published in the Journal of Alternative and Complementary Medicine, showed significant improvement in delayed recall scores. And it's worth noting that there was more than just a trend toward significance. Actual statistical significance was shown in the precise measure of memory function. A 2013 meta-analysis of 9 randomized controlled trials with 518 participants found that Bacopa improved reaction time and information processing speed. To put it into perspective, it's the difference between remembering where you put your keys and spending 20 minutes searching for them, between immediately recognizing your grandchild's name and that painful half-second pause. But here's where it gets interesting. A systematic review in 2022 directly compared Bacopa monnieri with donepezil, a blockbuster Alzheimer's treatment sold under the name Aricept. The study involved patients aged 60 to 75 diagnosed with Alzheimer's. Half of the patients received Bacopa. The other half received donepezil at a standard pharmaceutical dosage. Results: no significant difference in cognitive function. Bacopa has been shown to be as effective as the drug. But here's what pharmaceutical companies aren't advertising. Donepezil costs approximately $500 per month for the brand name Aricept, or $170 for the generic version without insurance. Bacopa extract costs about $20 for a month's supply. That's not 5% cheaper. It's 95% cheaper, yet delivers identical cognitive benefits. The suppression isn't subtle, it's mechanistic. In the United States, the FDA states that Bacopa is not approved for any medicinal purposes. To obtain approval, a company must invest $1 billion in Phase 3 clinical trials for the wild-growing plant, a plant that anyone can grow from a single stem cutting, a plant that has been used safely for 3,000 years. No company would invest $1 billion in something they can't patent. So Bacopa remains unapproved. Not unsafe, not ineffective, just unapproved, which means doctors can't prescribe it. Insurance doesn't cover it, and most patients never hear about it from their neurologist. Economic incentives explain everything. In 2012, the UK's National Institute for Health Research analyzed the effectiveness of drugs such as donepezil. They found that these drugs slowed the progression of Alzheimer's disease by about 6 weeks over a 5-year period. 6 weeks of slowed cognitive decline in exchange for 60 months of expensive treatment. The cost per quality-adjusted life year exceeded £80,000, significantly higher than what health economists consider acceptable. Meanwhile, a 2021 study found that Bacopa, when combined with cognitive training, actually improved brain microstructure in healthy adults over 55. MRI revealed increased neural complexity. Pharmaceutical alternatives can't claim this. This is what ancient scientists understood, but modern medicine has forgotten. The human brain evolved to regenerate itself. Bacopa does not cause artificial chemical changes. It contains thiourpenoid saponins called bacosides, which work through multiple mechanisms. They act as antioxidants, detoxifying the brain of metal ions. They modulate neurotransmitters. They promote neuroplasticity and the formation of new synaptic connections. This isn't a single-molecule hammer. It's a complex biochemical toolkit, honed by evolution over millions of years. But here's what the industry is truly afraid of. In fact, you can grow it yourself. Bacopa semiaquatica thrives in damp places, swamps, and even in aquariums. You can buy it at a pet store for $5 as an ornamental plant. It tolerates temperatures from 15 to 28 degrees Celsius. It requires no more than water and sunlight. Propagation is absurdly simple. Cut off a healthy stem. Place it in water and wait for 2 weeks for roots to form. This single cutting will become the mother plant. Within a few months, you'll have enough Bacopa to last you indefinitely. Traditional preparation is quite simple. Ancient practitioners crushed fresh leaves to extract juice. Modern consumers dry the leaves, grind them into powder, and consume them with warm water or honey to mask the bitterness. Clinical dosages range from 300 to 450 milligrams per day. The plant is well tolerated with mild gastrointestinal side effects that typically resolve within a few weeks. So ask yourself, why did Vedic scholars identify this particular plant as the key to memory 3,000 years ago? Why do randomized controlled trials show that it matches the benefits of drugs that cost 25 times more? And why doesn't your doctor ever mention it? The answer will surprise you, and it's not at all medical. It's economic. A plant you can grow from a cutting for $5 doesn't generate quarterly profits for pharmaceutical shareholders. It doesn't require lifelong prescriptions that cost $6,000 a year per patient. It simply works quietly, effectively, for about $20 a month, or for free if you grow it yourself. This isn't a business model, it's a threat to a business model. Ancient texts called it Brahmi, after the creator god. They understood that memory is more than just personal recollection and is perhaps the only way civilizations pass on knowledge from generation to generation. Modern medicine has reduced this profound understanding to a billing code, a market opportunity. Each condition treated with drugs that slow decline by 6 weeks over 5 years incurs costs exceeding $80,000 per quality-adjusted life year gained. Meanwhile, the plant that ancient scholars used to memorize texts of 100,000 words grows wild in humid areas around the world. The thing is that while the world was learning to sell memory in pills, the ancients may have already known that part of this power grows in water, in a swamp, on a windowsill, in a simple green stem that you might not notice. And if enough people remember that name again, Bacopa monnieri, it won't be science that collapses. The entire familiar narrative that something valuable must necessarily be expensive, complex, and inaccessible will collapse. You can easily order it from the websites of aquarium equipment suppliers, or you can even grow it on your windowsill. And if enough people discover this simple fact, the business model of an entire industry could collapse. And that's why the suppression of this model continues to this day. That's why your doctor has never heard of it and won't tell you about it. It is clear that there are medical standards and registered drugs, but this is the main reason why you needed to watch this video to find out what Vedic scientists already knew 3,000 years ago. If you're looking to uncover more lost knowledge buried by the modern world, subscribe to stay informed as we build a library of plants that can save us and uncover knowledge previously hidden from public view.